Okay, so you want to own a private island. You picture white sand, clear water, a few villas hidden behind palm trees, and a dock where nobody arrives unless you invite them. There are no neighbors, no traffic, no crowded hotel lobby, just your own piece of land surrounded by ocean. And if you turn that island into a luxury retreat, the prices can look almost absurd. On selected 2026 dates, individual rooms on Necker Island in the British Virgin Islands are priced at roughly $6,000 per night. Some suites cost closer to $9,400. The island can also be hired exclusively, with enough accommodation for dozens of guests. At those prices, owning an island starts to look less like real estate and more like a private money machine. But there is another number hiding behind the beach. Necker operates its own integrated off-grid energy system with more than 1,200 solar panels and 3 large wind turbines. The system can generate up to roughly 650 kilowatts of renewable power. Guests arriving through Beef Island still need a 30-minute speedboat transfer to reach the property. And after Hurricane Irma struck in 2017, the island went through a full rebuild before reopening the following year. That is the private island contradiction. The isolation is exactly what makes the property valuable to a guest. It is also what makes almost everything expensive for the owner. A mainland hotel can connect to roads, electricity, water, sewerage, supermarkets, hospitals, contractors, and thousands of potential employees. A remote island may need to recreate many of those systems for itself. So the question is not whether a private island can generate extraordinary revenue. Some clearly can. The question is how much it costs to make isolation feel effortless. By the end of this, you will understand what you are actually buying, where island revenue comes from, why infrastructure matters more than the beach, and how paradise can become a very expensive logistics problem. The first thing to understand is that a private island is not automatically a business. If you buy an island for personal use, the economics are simple. There may be no revenue at all. You are purchasing a consumption asset with a permanent operating bill. Every year, you still maintain buildings, docks, boats, power systems, staff, landscaping, insurance, security, and transportation. The island can be completely empty and still consume money. The second model is the private island resort. This is where isolation becomes a product. Guests pay large amounts for privacy, limited capacity, exclusive service, and the feeling that an entire destination belongs to them. The third model is island development. An owner acquires the land, installs infrastructure, then sells or leases villas, resort units, marina space, or development parcels. That can produce enormous proceeds. It also introduces planning law, homeowners associations, shared utilities, construction financing, and long-term infrastructure obligations. All three involve islands. Only two are really operating businesses, and their risk begins before construction. You are not buying a country. You are buying land inside somebody else's country. That means local property law, planning law, environmental regulation, taxes, customs, immigration rules, labor law, and coastal restrictions still apply. Foreign ownership rules can be especially important. In the Bahamas, for example, certain acquisitions by non-Bahamians require registration, while other types require permission from the investment board. Commercial development can also trigger environmental impact and management requirements. So the first question is not how beautiful the beach looks. The first question is what legal rights actually come with the land. Can you build a dock? Can you dredge the approach? Can you build 20 villas? Can you remove mangroves? Where can wastewater go? Can foreign employees work there? Can the island legally operate as a hotel? Who owns access through surrounding waters? An island with the wrong answers can be spectacular and commercially useless. Now look at the purchase itself. Private island prices vary too widely for a meaningful global average. A small, undeveloped island can cost less than a luxury city apartment. A developed resort island can be worth tens or hundreds of millions. The dangerous mistake is assuming the purchase price represents the project cost. Raw island land often arrives without the systems that make ordinary property usable. There may be no usable dock, no roads, no power, no freshwater system, no sewage treatment, No employee accomodation. No stormshelter. No reliable communications. The cheap island can be the expensive island because every missing system has to cross the water before it can be installed. Start with transportation. Everything on the island arrived somehow. Concrete arrived. Steel arrived. Furniture arrived. Food arrives every week. Employees arrive every shift or every rotation. Guests arrive with luggage. Fuel, replacement parts, laundry supplies, medicine, wine, construction material, and garbage all move through a marine or aviation system. That means the dock is not a lifestyle accessory. It is part of the supply chain. A shallow harbor may require smaller boats. Rough weather may stop transfers. A damaged dock can interrupt both guest arrivals and basic provisioning. If the property requires an airstrip, the complexity increases again. Aircraft access creates runway, maintenance, fire, safety, regulatory, and operating requirements. The luxury experience begins with infrastructure the guest should barely notice. Next comes electricity. On a mainland property, power usually arrives through a cable owned by somebody else. On a remote island, the owner may effectively operate a small utility company. Diesel generators provide reliable power, but fuel must be purchased, transported, stored, filtered, and protected from weather. Solar can reduce fuel dependence. Batteries can move daytime generation into the evening. Wind may add another source. But renewable systems still require inverters, controls, technicians, spare components, and backup generation. Necker Island's renewable system illustrates the scale involved. More than 1,200 solar panels and 3 wind turbines are supporting one luxury island operation. The guest sees an air-conditioned room. The owner sees generation capacity, storage, backup, maintenance, and fuel security. Water creates the same problem. A tropical island can be surrounded by billions of gallons of water and still have a freshwater shortage. Some islands collect rainwater. Others use wells where geology allows. Luxury resorts may rely on desalination. Desalination needs energy, filtration, maintenance, storage tanks, pumps, and backup capacity. The water then has to move into kitchens, bathrooms, pools, staff housing, landscaping, and fire systems. After the guest uses it, the problem does not disappear. Wastewater must be treated. Solid waste must be separated, stored, processed, composted, incinerated where legal, or transported back off the island. The guest sees paradise without rubbish. The owner pays to make the rubbish disappear. Now consider staffing. A luxury private island sells service at the same time it sells isolation. That is difficult because the property is deliberately located away from a large labor market. Some employees may commute by boat. Others need staff housing. That creates additional bedrooms, kitchens, bathrooms, power demand, water demand, transport, meals, and management. You need hospitality staff. You need chefs. You need engineers. You need boat crews. You need housekeeping. You need landscaping. You may need security, water sports staff, medical capability, wildlife specialists, or maintenance technicians. A hotel in a city can call an electrician. An island may need the electrician already living there. This is why private island staffing is not only a payroll question. It is an infrastructure question. Now we can look at the first revenue stream, accommodation. A luxury private island has very limited inventory. That scarcity allows high pricing. Rooms can be sold individually during selected periods. At other times, the entire island can be offered to one family, corporation, wedding party, or group. Exclusive use increases privacy and simplifies the guest experience. It can also produce very large transactions from a small number of customers. But limited capacity creates concentration risk. A normal hotel might have 300 rooms. A private island may have 12 or 20. Losing one booking can therefore remove a meaningful percentage of available revenue. The second revenue stream is the buyout premium. A guest is not only purchasing bedrooms. They are paying to remove everybody else. The beach becomes private. The dining schedule becomes private. The boats, activities, and staff can be organized around one group. Privacy itself becomes inventory. This is one of the few hospitality businesses where selling fewer people access can justify charging more money. The third revenue stream comes from events. Weddings, family celebrations, executive retreats, brand events, and private parties can command premium pricing. The island can provide accommodation, food, drinks, entertainment, marine transport, photography, and event production in one package. A successful event may monetize almost every part of the property simultaneously. It also concentrates operational risk into a few critical days. Bad weather on an ordinary hotel day is disappointing. Bad weather during a $1 million destination event can become a contractual and reputational problem. The fourth revenue stream comes from activities. Water sports, diving, fishing, sailing, spa treatments, boat trips, wildlife experiences, and nearby excursions can increase guest value. Some luxury resorts include many of these services inside the nightly price. Others charge separately. Either way, they matter economically because they justify the room rate and increase the perceived value of staying on an isolated property. The fifth revenue stream comes from food and beverage. On many ultra-luxury islands, meals and drinks are included. That does not make them free. It means their cost is hidden inside the package price. The operator must forecast guest preferences before the supply boat leaves the mainland. High-end wine, fresh seafood, produce, specialty ingredients, and dietary requirements all need planning. An ordinary restaurant can receive another delivery tomorrow morning. An island kitchen may be one missed boat away from changing the menu. The sixth revenue layer can come from real estate. Some island projects sell villas or residences while keeping the resort, marina, and shared services under central management. The developer receives large upfront proceeds. Owners may then pay management fees or infrastructure charges. This can reduce the amount of capital the original developer has trapped in the property. It can also create one of the most dangerous structures in the entire business. The more owners share private infrastructure, the more important governance becomes. Who pays for the generator? Who pays for the water plant? Who replaces the dock? What happens when one group refuses to pay? An island can have beautiful villas and still fail because the infrastructure underneath the ownership structure no longer works. Now build a simplified private island resort model. Assume you operate 14 luxury villas. That creates 5,110 available villa nights each year. Assume average occupancy of 60%. You sell about 3,066 villa nights. At an average realized rate of $4,000 per occupied villa night, accommodation produces roughly $12.3 million. Events, premium transfers, spa services, activities, and other spending contribute another $2.2 million. Total annual revenue reaches approximately $14.5 million. That sounds extraordinary for 14 villas. Now pay for the island. Staff payroll, benefits, housing, and employee transport consume about $3.8 million. Food, beverages, guest supplies, and housekeeping inventory require roughly $950,000. Boats, fuel, marine crews, freight, and mainland logistics consume another $1.05 million. Power, water production, wastewater, waste handling, and communications require approximately $1 million. Routine building, dock, landscaping, pool, and infrastructure maintenance consumes another $950,000. Insurance, security, permits, environmental compliance, and professional services take about $750,000. Marketing, reservations, travel commissions, and sales costs consume roughly $1.15 million. Management and administration require another $750,000. A serious owner also reserves $1 million for major capital replacement and storm recovery. Financing, lease obligations, or acquisition-related debt consume another $1.5 million. Total annual costs reach roughly $12.9 million. The property leaves about $1.6 million before tax and unusual events. $14.5 million enter the island. Roughly 11% remained in this simplified model. The guest saw a $4,000 villa surrounded by ocean. The owner saw a tiny, isolated city that had to operate perfectly every day. Now change one variable. Occupancy falls from 60% to 50%. The property loses approximately 511 occupied villa nights. At $4,000 per night, accommodation revenue alone falls by just over $2 million. Guest activity and event spending also weaken. Food costs decline somewhat. Power, engineering, insurance, management, dock maintenance, security, boats, and financing barely move. The original profit disappears. The island can still charge $4,000 a night. It simply does not have enough people paying it. That is the first major financial trap. High pricing does not solve low utilization. Now change a second variable. A major storm forces the property to close for 60 days. At the original annual revenue rate, more than $2.3 million of revenue can disappear before repair costs are included. Then come damaged roofs, broken docks, saltwater intrusion, landscape destruction, generator damage, canceled reservations, employee support, boat repairs, insurance deductibles. A storm does not need to destroy the entire island to destroy the year's profit. Necker Island provides a useful example of resilience. Hurricane Irma hit the British Virgin Islands in September 2017. Necker was heavily affected and later underwent a full rebuild before reopening in October 2018. A successful island business, therefore, needs more than operating profit. It needs enough capital and organizational strength to survive periods when the asset cannot operate normally. Now look at a much uglier example of island infrastructure failure. Coorn Cove on Australia's South Stradbroke Island is not a traditional single-owner private island, but its story shows exactly what happens when island utilities become financially unstable. The development contains hundreds of properties on private land. Residents depended on private systems for electricity, water, gas, and sewerage. In 2023, essential services were disconnected during a long-running financial dispute. By 2026, a court had upheld judgments involving approximately 22 million Australian dollars of outstanding debt. Some residents who remained relied on water tanks, generators, and expensive barge-based arrangements. Think about what disappeared. The houses were still there. The island was still there. The ocean view was still there. What failed was the invisible system that made the property usable. That is what private island failure often looks like. Paradise does not have to sink. The power can simply stop. The water can stop. The dock can fail. The insurance can become unaffordable. The service network can break before the real estate disappears. Several financial traps are now obvious. The purchase price is not the project cost. A cheap island without infrastructure can require more capital than an expensive developed island. Isolation creates pricing power and operating cost at the same time. Exclusive use can produce huge bookings but makes revenue dependent on a small number of customers. Renewable energy can reduce fuel exposure, but the owner still needs backup systems and technicians. Real estate sales can release capital, but shared infrastructure can create governance problems that last for decades. And insurance does not eliminate storm risk. It only changes who pays part of the rebuilding bill. Now compare that with a stronger island model. Necker Island is useful because it does not depend on one simple revenue idea. The island can be booked exclusively. During selected periods, individual rooms are sold. Food, drinks, boat transfers, and numerous activities are packaged into the experience. The property has built substantial independent energy infrastructure. It also sits inside a larger luxury hospitality brand and distribution system. That matters. A random island owner has to convince customers that a remote piece of land is worth thousands of dollars per night. An established brand already owns trust, marketing reach, guest history, reservation systems, and relationships. That is the hidden advantage. The strong operator does not sell geography. It sells confidence that the geography will work. The weak owner buys the island first and tries to invent demand later. The strong owner knows exactly which customer will pay for the isolation. The weak owner sees solar panels as an environmental feature. The strong owner sees energy independence as business continuity. The weak owner sees the dock as somewhere to park a boat. The strong owner sees the dock as the island's loading bay, front door, employee entrance, emergency route, and supply chain. The weak owner sees staff housing as a cost. The strong owner understands that service quality depends on keeping skilled people close to the property. Same beach, different business. Now ask what a sophisticated buyer studies before purchasing a private island. The buyer starts with title and legal use. Is the property freehold or leasehold? Can a foreign buyer hold it? What environmental restrictions apply? What development density is allowed? What permits already exist? Then comes access. How deep is the water near the dock? What happens in rough weather? How far is the nearest airport? Can construction barges reach the property? Then comes freshwater. What is the rainfall pattern? Is groundwater usable? How much desalination capacity exists? How much storage is available if a pump fails? Then comes energy. How much power does the property need at peak occupancy? What generates that power? How much fuel must be stored? How long can the island operate if the next delivery does not arrive? Then comes waste. Where does sewage go? Where does rubbish go? What environmental liability already exists? Then comes the physical condition. The buyer inspects roofs, seawalls, docks, roads, generators, solar equipment, batteries, kitchens, staff housing, boats, pools, and corrosion. Finally comes demand. Who is actually going to pay to stay here? How often? At what price? Through which sales channel? The cheapest private island is not the one with the lowest asking price. It is the one where the largest expensive problems have already been solved. The future of private islands will move in three important directions. First, more properties will invest in energy independence. Solar, batteries, wind, efficient cooling, and smart energy management can reduce dependence on delivered fuel. For an isolated property, resilience and sustainability often become the same investment. Second, water and waste systems will become increasingly important. Luxury guests may never see these systems. Regulators, insurers, and owners cannot ignore them. Third, climate resilience will become part of valuation. Buildings can be designed for stronger winds. Electrical systems can be elevated. Docks can be reinforced. Water storage can be expanded. Backup communications can be installed. Those investments may not create a single additional Instagram photograph. They could determine whether the island still has a business after the next major storm. So can owning a private island make you rich? Yes, but buying the island is probably the easiest part to understand. The strong version has clear legal rights, reliable transport, resilient power, secure freshwater, trained staff, and a customer willing to pay for privacy. It has enough pricing power to support the infrastructure. It has enough capital to survive the years when nature does not cooperate. The weak version buys a beautiful piece of land and assumes beauty is the product. Then the first generator fails. The dock needs rebuilding. The desalination plant needs parts. The staff cannot get to work. Insurance rises. And the cheap island begins demanding cash from every direction. From the boat, both islands may look like paradise. The same blue water surrounds them. The same palms move in the wind. The same empty beach stretches in front of the villas. But one owner controls a resilient hospitality and infrastructure system that happens to sit on an island. The other owns isolated land that needs a miniature civilization built around it. The island is not the business. Turning isolation into something guests will pay for, without letting isolation destroy the operating system, is